Welcome back. You're watching The Agenda, and just a quick apology to our viewers. The Internet of Things and the fourth industrial revolution not quite playing along, but let's see what we can do now.
Oh, we can blame it on the gremlins. Well, for more on BRICS, earlier our reporter Arabile Gomede spoke to the DJ for Trade and Investment, and this is what he had to say. Watch.
Part of the convening here for the summit is actually to articulate and to work out how we put our best foot forward, one, as a country, and as a BRICS collective over the next 10 years. We're celebrating 10 years of BRICS, and we're reflecting on in the changing global political landscape now. We see, rising protectionism and the like. What does that mean for the future of the BRICS? So in as much as we're putting our best foot forward, we're also looking at the current challenges and what they mean for the bloc and how we can come up with collective responsive mechanisms.
Yeah.
Not just for the bloc as well, but for the rest of the African continent, because that's priority for South Africa.
One would say that we may have been overshadowed over the past couple of years with regards to BRICS, considering that we aren't the biggest player. And yes, we may be trying to shout out not only our voices, but the African voice at the same time too. Do you think we've been successful in doing that, or are we now beginning to find our feet a lot more?
We have found considerable success since joining the BRICS. We've seen an increase in the trade flows between ourselves and the BRICS countries. Of course, the trade is still skewed insofar as we are still primarily exporting primary products and importing value-added products. But from a number standpoint, we've seen a growth. Another important development is the growth in the intra-BRICS investments.
Yes.
The BRICS bloc has invested considerably in South Africa, particularly in productive sectors, pharmaceuticals, automotives, you name it. Interestingly enough, South Africa itself has invested considerably in BRICS countries. We're sitting at a figure of about $68 billion worth of South African investments in the BRICS. So the relationship is quite a strong one, of course much stronger insofar as investment is concerned. So what we're looking at is how do we then diversify the export basket in terms of what we export and how we then establish complementary trade.
Yeah, continuing that agreement and finding people like, for instance, yesterday, of course, seeing China come through with a whole lot of investment in South Africa. We don't always seem to see the silver lining, but clearly other people do a lot more than we do even.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
How do we make sure that that relationship continues to grow, not just with China, but with the rest of the BRICS nations and the emerging markets as well?
Yes. The great thing about this grouping, the bloc, as a BRICS, is we do have bilateral platforms of engagement. For example, earlier this year we had an SA India forum. We also engage at the G20. At the G20, we engage at the BRICS. So there are numerous platforms for engagement to strengthen the collaboration and the cooperation. And we are using now this BRICS platform to decisively discuss how do we facilitate intra-BRICS investments amongst ourselves. That's one of the discussions that that's going to take place later on today. We'll also be working out a roadmap for a BRIC Africa collaboration.
Yeah.
How do we support the integration agenda of the rest of the African continent, and what role should BRICS play, BRICS institutions as well as BRIC member states, they should play to support our African agenda. So that's what's going to happen in the first part of the forum that's ongoing now, and later on in the day, of course, the heads of state will join in the proceedings and give us their views on all these matters.
Yeah. How do you measure the success of BRICS? How would you measure it at the end of this?
Yes.
What are you going to say? That is how you know it was successful.
Let me tell you that as we speak, BRIC is being assessed and measured. There's an independent body in Canada that measures BRICS' compliance to summit decisions. And they gave us a report that showed that of all the summit decisions that BRICS has taken, we've implemented 70% of all the decisions. That is a very high number when you compare with other multilateral or regional organizations. So we're quite optimistic that the roadmap we're going to come up with in the next 3 days will make sure that we follow through. Because where we are now is celebrating 10 years of BRICS, but we're mapping out a roadmap for the next 10 years of the BRICS, insofar as the fourth industrial revolution and the adjustment costs that pertain to it, as well as opportunities. What do we do about those adjustment costs? Future of jobs, new skills, what strategies do we need? Similarly, of course, with the rest of the continent. Are we competing with one another as a BRICS insofar as engaging the continent? Or are we working collectively for a common cause? So we'll have concrete summit level decisions around those key issues and more, of course, that we'll have to monitor. So when we go to summit again in Brazil next year, who will be the chair, I'm sure you can hold us to account. insofar as implementation.
And very finally then, your hopes then for this BRICS. I mean, yes, you've got ways to measure it in terms of success. You know what measures success in itself, but what would your message be to all the leaders, to the corporates, to the CEOs exactly when they come to BRICS?
Yeah.
How should their mindsets be? What should they be looking at?
The mindset should be, how do we work together to foster entrepreneurship in our respective economies? Because that's the future of our growth, particularly youth entrepreneurship. So whatever we discuss, we must be conscious that the BRICS countries themselves have a youth bulge, right? So whatever we do, we have to consider that our economic growth will be based on that youth. And we must mainstream the issues of young people into the discussions. So that's the message that we are constantly reminding ourselves to say, you know, we are not crafting strategies for now, strategies for the future. And we need to have young people's voices heard